Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. I'm your host and beat writer, Brock Vieira. You can check out all of our work at www.ramsonsi. Sorry, my apologies. You can check out our website, www.si.com/Rams/NFL/on SI, or just look up Rams on SI. You can find all of our work, double-digit pieces of content every single day, where we keep track of everything the Rams are doing: salary cap, trades, free agency, the draft, any type of movement over there. And that kind of leads me into this podcast episode. And that is addressing who are proper fits to potentially succeed Matthew Stafford as the Rams starter in the event he retires either after this season or, of course, over the course of the next few seasons. Let's talk about now, because there is a vacancy. Jimmy Garoppolo, the Rams love him. Sean McVay once again told the media on Tuesday that, sorry, my apologies, on Wednesday that, on Tuesday, that if there's a potential to bring back Garoppolo in that backup role, they would love to do it. They love him. They have tremendous respect for him. There is a genuine appreciation by the entire organization for everything that he did when Matthew Stafford was out in training camp and preseason last season, with dealing with his back issue. He fine-tuned the offense, and then he made sure it was ready to go. And then he took a step back, no problems, to give Stafford the keys. And, of course, Stafford took that offense and won MVP with it and took them to the verge of a Super Bowl and put up a stat line that no other quarterback has had and lost in that type of scenario before. So that's why the Rams love him. And that's what they're going to want to look for in a backup quarterback. You do have to wonder if Kyler Murray is going to be that guy, because I'm not too sure Murray can be that player to fine-tune the offense, take the step back without causing trouble or drama or anything like that. It's not a negative knock against Kyler Murray, but you have to wonder, considering he's been a starter his entire professional career, up until this past season, which that was a whole issue onto itself. Would he be willing to take that role and those responsibilities? If he is, though, there's a tremendous amount of interest on both sides, allegedly. This is just my take on the situation. This is not a report. This is my take. Cliff Kingsbury is kind of the glue that kind of makes this all work. But if Murray is willing to take a team-friendly deal to be that backup and kind of grow into a potentially a starter role, he provides Sean McVay with instantly a premier backup, a dual threat option that is able to operate the offense as it is, but then also can take it to a different level with the threat that he possesses with his feet. I think with those Sean McVay passing concepts, I think that there'll be a nice blend of air raid concepts as well from Kingsbury. Kingsbury is also here with Brian Johnson, who was his fellow assistant under Dan Quinn in Washington. So there's a bunch of familiarity there. And you start to think about, what will the McVay offense look like in the next 5 years? You're going to see a lot more of those tweener type of players, guys like Terrence Ferguson, who are natural tight ends, but are able to kind of be flexed out to the outside. And when you start looking at how McVay might dial up these mismatches on offense, Murray presents an automatic mismatch to himself, because if you put too many linebackers on the field, and based on your coverage schemes, Murray can burn them with his feet. He plays too many defensive backs, and Murray can use his feet to manipulate them into bad spots while allowing some of those bigger targets to get into a proper position in order for the Rams offense to attack. So Murray is an interesting option right now. Start looking a little bit down the road. After this year, Baker Mayfield is set to be a free agent. Baker Mayfield loves the Rams. Baker Mayfield loves Los Angeles, and the Rams feel the exact same way about Mayfield. What Mayfield did for the Rams back in 2022 cannot be understated. He's the reason why the Rams are where they are right now. That was a time in which Sean McVay was contemplating retirement. Everyone talks about that Raiders game, in which he came in on a couple days, led the comeback on Thursday night, and it was fun times in Los Angeles. The true game, though, that nobody talks about that I think really redefined the Rams is the Denver Broncos game. I believe the week after, during Christmas time, if I'm not mistaken, where the Rams blew the Broncos right out of the water. Like, it was bad. Like, Nathaniel Hackett was fired, like, I think the next day by Denver, ending his less than 1 year stint as head coach of the Broncos. When you know that you have a guy like Mayfield on your side, a guy who's a pure gunslinger, who is excellent in the system, who has proven himself to be excellent in multiple variations of the system, who adds that sort of dual threat element. He's not going to run for a whole bunch of yards, but he's going to be able to get those critical yards. And in a lot of ways, he's like Matthew Stafford in the fact that he's a cockroach. Very hard to kill. Very hard to defeat in the fourth quarter. When you have a passer like that, it amplifies the entire team. And that's the exact type of quarterback I think Sean McVay wants to look for in terms of a long-term option. Because I don't think he wants to go back to running the ball overtly. I don't think he wants to go back to a time in which he's not using his patented 11 personnel. While he does understand the need to incorporate different personnel packages to keep things fresh, to keep defenses on their toes, when push comes to shove and it's time to push the ball down the field, you better bet there's going to be 3 wide receivers at least in that formation. And Mayfield thrives in 11 personnel. The only other option I can really see the Rams exploring is Joe Burrow. Now, this is going to be the unique one because Burrow has an extension with Cincinnati, has close ties with that organization, plus also Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who are, like, I believe, number 2 and number 3 for highest paid players currently on the Bengals. Getting Burrow out of there is going to be tough. His cost is going to be tough. Bringing on his contract is going to be tough. And moving him without also acquiring a guy like Chase or Higgins, extremely tough. And there's not really a price out there for the Rams to pay that could get multiple of those guys, Burrow and Chase, or Burrow and Higgins, or all 3, or whatever. The one thing that the Rams have on their side in regards to Joe Burrow is time. They're not going to go after him this year. There's a chance they might not go after him next year. And by the time we start approaching 2028, 2029, that's where his contract is going to start to expire. And that's where a lot of his guaranteed money might not be, it might be off the books by that point. There's also one other thing to think about, and that is this. There's always been these rumors that the NFL, I apologize for that sound, the NFL is going to extend their salary cap. Not salary cap. They're going to extend that. But they're also going to possibly extend the amount of years at which you can trade picks. Currently, you can only trade 3 picks, 3 years worth of picks. If that goes up to 5, I could see the Rams making a courageous move to go and add the multiple pieces from one team if it makes sense and if they can bring in a quarterback. But when you start looking at all these scenarios, there's several facts that come kind of evident. They're not going to go after a rookie, at least not anytime soon. There's not really a desire to develop anybody right now. And you have to wonder, is the reason why there isn't that desire because after Stafford retires and after Devontae Adams goes, does Sean McVay want to hang it up after? Like, hey, he had it, especially if they win a second Super Bowl. Like, hey, I had my fun. I loved what I was doing, but it's time for me to move on. McVay has said some things in recent years, especially just recently, that has made me question his long-term future as a coach in football. He's going to coach forever, however long he wants to. He's that caliber of guy. But the love of it, right? Having to deal with it day in, day out when you don't have that same relationship with a quarterback of Matthew Stafford's caliber, mindset, intelligence, whatever. Having to have to rearm your staff every year. Having this constant chase, especially in a division that has, multiple top minds on both sides of the ball. We could be approaching a scenario in which he says, hey, I'm done. He's already talked about how he doesn't need to be a play caller forever. He enjoys it, but it's not like a need to for him. He was talking about it in the middle of the season last year. He talked about it. He's still going to be play caller this year, but, that could change down the road. If Nate Shieldhouse doesn't get promoted to a head coaching role after this year, does maybe McVay hand over the play calling reins to him? Dave Ragone, either. Maybe that's a potential option. Then you start looking at the rest of the staff and There's several coaches that are expected to leave after the season for bigger opportunities or have the potential to. After a while, that starts to weigh on you. And then you start thinking about a guy like Les Snead. How much longer does he want to be a general manager in this league? Yes, he's worked very hard to be in this position. He deserves to be in this position. He is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But there comes a point where I believe Snead is in his mid-50s. He's been in the role since 2012. Just to think about it, he was hired as a general manager when I was 13 years old. I'm 27 now. Just to illustrate how long he's been doing this. At some point, maybe he's like, I don't want to do it no more. Does McVay, who has a legendary general manager grandfather, maybe want to transition to the front office? I don't know. But all those questions are going to factor into finding a replacement for Matthew Stafford. And it's clear that none of those questions want to be answered right now. That's why I'm not expecting the Rams to go out and draft the guy. I think if they're going to sign anybody up for a long-term investment, it's going to be Murray. And if they just want a guy to be a backup in the way Garoppolo was, I think they go out and they look at the McVay tree. Which backup quarterback is a free agent? Do they bring back Carson Wentz? Whoever Kevin O'Connell has coached in Minnesota for these last several years, Lord knows how many quarterbacks that is. All the injuries that he's had to deal with. Maybe a guy that worked with Matt LaFleur. Obviously not Malik Willis because he's going to cost way too much, but just somebody. Maybe a former Liam Cohen guy. Who knows? Maybe Teddy Bridgewater wants to leave Tampa Bay, right? Just Florida in general, kick it on the West Coast as a backup. Who knows? But whatever they do, it's clear that there's only certain solutions that are going to be satisfactory for this franchise in terms of trying to find a long-term fit. This has been Brock Vieira for the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. We'll catch y'all next time. Take care.